Mexico is suing American gun makers.
And now Mexico says the makers of those guns should be the ones to pay. The government scoring a victory last week as a U.S. federal appeals court cleared the way for a $10 billion lawsuit to proceed against 6 of the biggest gun makers in America, including Smith & Wesson, Glock, and Ruger. Mexico accuses those companies of aiding and abetting an illegal trafficking network of weapons from American gun stores to Mexican cartels.
The case had been thrown out of court, but now the Court of Appeals for the First Circuit over in Massachusetts has revived this case.
According to the appeals court's latest ruling, Mexico must now prove that American gun companies have deliberately catered to the illegal market by design choices, marketing tactics, and selling to parties that are known dealers for the cartels.
And to make it worse, the Brady Anti-Gun Group, whatever they're calling themselves now, has had to file as foreign agents to work on behalf of the Mexican government to sue American gun makers, claiming that American gun makers are causing the crime in Mexico. This is absolutely disgusting. I cannot believe it from start to finish. The reason behind this is that the Brady Group is trying to circumvent the law, the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act that was passed into law to protect American gun makers from being sued because someone uses their product, which was made legally, sold legally, produced legally, and then people used it for illegal activity. So the Brady Group has decided that they're going to try to circumvent this law by acting on behalf of the Mexican government to sue American gun makers because of the crime that's going on in Mexico. And what's making it even more ridiculous is that they're talking about the way American gun makers are marketing their guns, and by marketing their guns as being used by military and police agencies, that these guns, this marketing campaign somehow makes Mexican criminals more likely to buy these American guns because these guns are so good and they're used by the military and the police. This is absolutely ridiculous to claim that this marketing is inspiring people to commit crimes. Military and police agencies are not committing crimes. They're not encouraging people to commit crimes. The fact that they use these different types of firearms is not encouraging anyone to commit crimes. It's letting people know that these are well-built guns that people are relying on to save their lives when they're facing armed criminals who are desperate and trying to kill Americans because they want to sell drugs. Think about this for a minute. Think about just how absolutely foolish this is, that this Court of Appeals would revive this lawsuit. The original lawsuit was thrown out, and the judge who looked at it said, nope, we can't do this because the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act doesn't allow this, doesn't allow people to sue or groups to sue American gun makers. So the Brady campaign took the step of filing as foreign agents working on behalf of the Mexican government to sue these gun companies to try to put them out of business. Stop and think about this for a minute. Do you really think that if there were no gun manufacturers in America, there would be no criminals in Mexico? Do you really think that we would get rid of all of the criminal activity, all of the bribery, all of the extortion, all of the drug manufacturing by just getting rid of firearms makers in the United States? That's absolutely foolish. And the way that the judge has interpreted this and allowed this lawsuit to go on makes sure that all of these gun makers now have to defend themselves against this frivolous lawsuit. They can't just stand by and let it happen. So they're going to have to spend money. They're going to have to take their time. They're going to have to stop doing what they're doing, which is engaging in lawful business, providing arms for law-abiding Americans to protect themselves against, I don't know, drug dealers, maybe inspired by the Mexican drug cartels and the gangs. But this just continues to move forward. And I can't understand why. Well, I do understand why. They took it to the First Circuit Court because that's where things are happening up there at the Brady campaign, and they know that the First Circuit Court of Appeals, the Court of Appeals for the First Circuit, let me get that straight, is much more liberal and left-leaning and trying to put these gun makers out of business. And oddly enough, a lot of gun makers were originally founded from Gun Valley up there in Massachusetts and Connecticut and places like that. And they're being litigated, and the pressure to get them to stop producing firearms is forcing them to move out. And gun makers are leaving that area because it's just politically uncomfortable for them to stay there. The anti-gun makers are making it so difficult that they're taking their jobs and all of the economic benefits of making guns, and they're moving them to different states because they don't want to put up with this kind of garbage anymore. But the Brady campaign is out there saying that these gun makers are telling Mexican criminals to commit crimes and use their guns to commit these crimes. It's absolute foolishness. And we're watching this case very closely to see where it goes. It needs to be dismissed again. And it's at the Court of Appeals level. There's really not a whole lot we can do. We can't try to influence the court or anything like that. These judges are appointees, so we can't even vote them out of office or anything. But we need to be paying attention. We need to be vocal about this, and we need to enforce this law that is already on the books. It's as if we would want to sue the car makers because of the carnage caused by drunk drivers. We can't be doing that. It doesn't make any sense. It is absolutely illogical, and it is just another effort to try to make sure that we, honest, law-abiding Americans, don't have the opportunity to defend ourselves. We're supposed to rely on the government to do that. Well, clearly we can't rely on the Mexican government to protect people from drug runners. Look what's happening down there. Clearly we can't rely on the U.S. government to stop crime. It's just not working. We're just not stopping crime. The best way to stop crime is to defend yourself right at the site of the crime when someone attacks you. To do that, we need to be able to defend ourselves under the color of the Second Amendment. It gives us that God-given right. It doesn't give us that right. It protects that God-given right to allow us to defend ourselves any way that we see fit under the color of law. I mean, we have to do it legally, but we should still be able to do it. And the best way to do that is with a firearm. So pay attention to this case. Keep your eye on it. Keep talking to your representatives. We need to be politically active on this kind of stuff. Now, before you go, if you think you're using the right caliber for self-defense, think again. And you might not even know it, but your ammo could be putting you at severe disadvantage when you pull the trigger. Click the link in the description below to watch this short, unbiased video comparing the top 4 self-defense calibers and see if you end up changing handguns.